It is June, which means that we can all talk like old men and say, well, it looked like this year's gone by real fast. And that also is a good thing because it means that we're returning to a semblance of normalcy. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Pete. This is the Ponderings of Pete. Thank you for tuning in for this video. If you are new here, thank you so much. There's a like button, there's a subscribe button, there's a Discord channel that I have linked down below. I really hope that, you want to come back for more. Possibly. I don't know. I'm kind of weird. But hey. And if you are coming back, I really appreciate everybody's continued support, your comments, your discussions, just like anything that helps me discuss books more on the internet because it's fun. Now, today's video is a staple of YouTube, of BookTube specifically, and that is the mid-year freakout tag. So let's talk about it. First question, starting off with a bang. What is the best book that I've read all year 2022? That's a hard one. I will mention some books and then talk about them later because there are definitely some books that traverse different questions. First up, I'm going to talk about is Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. First book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy. I've heard great things about this trilogy from a lot of different people, and this book still blew me away. It's so different from Hobb's Farseer trilogy simply because it's multi-POV versus singular first-person POV. Like, there's a huge difference, and the depth of Hobb's character work is still there. We're not like continuing getting beat down because of fits like in Farseer, but like there's some pretty emotional moments in these books. She asks some really interesting questions in these books with these characters, and I'm super looking forward to continuing with this series as I read through the other two books in this particular series. The other one I will mention is Grace of Kings and its sequel, Wall of Storms. Grace of Kings was something that Grace of Kings was something that I started buddy reading with a few people and did a few live shows with and some reviews, and wow, it was great. I love it. Definitely one of my favorite books of the year with some great characters in it as well. The first book with Grace of Kings definitely was somewhat adjacent to history. I didn't really know the history, so it wasn't that big of a deal for me. But the writing style was really interesting because like this entire book could have been 3 books. But that's not the story that Ken Liu wanted to tell. So he had to get through all this history to get to the story he wanted to tell, which is what you find in Wall of Storms. Speaking of Wall of Storms, let's talk about the second question. What is the best sequel that you've read this year? And I think without a doubt that's Wall of Storms. Like there's other ones that I'm going to mention, but Wall of Storms is definitely like the forerunner for this question. Wall of Storms takes a lot of things that were built in the first book and just goes in crazy ways with them and introduces people into these new dynamics, and he takes the characters that were in book 1 and puts them into this new situation where they're allowed to grow in different ways and interact in different ways, and the characters change in ways that you can't see. But like, this book is not historical to my knowledge. And it feels to me like this is what Ken Liu wanted to write. He just had to set it up. Like, he took a glimpse of the history that Grace of Kings is based on and was like, you know what? What if that, but this, and that, and add in cow intestines and some other stuff. Like, if you are reading Grace of Kings and you're like, you know what, this is basically a ripoff of history. I mean, I can't tell you you're completely wrong, but that's not the entire story. And you need to read on because it's great. I guess that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm definitely finishing this series this year because, yeah. Another sequel that is fantastic and honestly kind of surprised me was The Scarab Path by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is book 5 of Shadows of the Apt. And the first 4 books, they were good. They were good. They weren't great, but they were good. Scarab Path was great. It took the flaws of the previous 4 books and kind of did away with a lot of them and was a lot more character focused, whereas the other 4 books were very, bloated character wise because there was a lot of people that we were following. Scarab Path takes that down and makes it more manageable and really just builds the world like Tchaikovsky is really good at doing, while also delivering a really good story with the characters he has on hand, and doesn't skimp with that story like he had I felt like he has a little bit in other books, because it's just felt like there's a bunch of stories that were rushed because there were so many characters involved. So Scarab Path, beautiful book. Question 3. What is a new release you have not read yet but are looking forward to and you want to? And I don't know if I'll reach it this year, but I'm going to put Star Wars Brotherhood right here. This is a new release Star Wars that is technically, canon insofar as we know, according to Disney, because they like to play fast and loose with the canon we know. I'm not too bitter, just jaded and, whatever. This is a story about, as you can tell by the cover, Anakin and Obi-Wan. And I think they have a great dynamic. But I'm always loving more of that dynamic. So this is just, an opportunity to see more of the brothers of Anakin and Obi-Wan. I don't exactly remember where in the canon and timeline this is placed, but I've heard it's actually pretty good. I think it's after episode 2, so it's between 2 and 3, obviously. Second question, what is my most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And I'm going to tie this with 2 different ones because I'm really excited about both. The first one is Babble, or The Necessity of Violence. An Arcane History of the Oxford Translators' Revolution by R.F. Kuang. This one just sounds super interesting, and the theming just sounds really cool. This is a dark academia book with some really heavy themes of imperialism, and of course it's all set in a fantasy world with some translating stuff to do. It just sounds super unique, and I'm super interested to try it. The second book I'm hyped for is The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. I love Brandon Sanderson. Like, this man is awesome. I get into talks about Brandon Sanderson all the time in terms of just like what's happening in the Cosmere, and I enjoy spreading the word and talking to people about Brandon Sanderson because he's just great. It's great. Just theorizing about what's happening in the Cosmere, going down just random research holes. It's awesome. So understandably, I'm really excited for The Lost Metal. I am not what I would call an Era 2 hater. I enjoyed Era 2 of Mistborn because it is not Era 1 of Mistborn. So, I apologize if that sounded really weirdly pretentious, but like, I think Era 2 is good enough to stand on its own, and I just think Era 2 is good for what it is. I mean, it's not perfect because none of Brandon's books are perfect in reality, but I love it for what it is. That's coming out in November. Oxford, the Babble, or The Necessity of Violence, is coming out in end of August, I believe. I think I have a slate for August or September. I don't know off the top of my head. I think I put it in a video a while ago. But those are the 2 most anticipated. Technically, one that's also like really, really soon that's going to be released, which I'm not really counting because it's being released really soon, and I'm definitely going to read it like on release day, hopefully, is Speaking Bones by Ken Liu, which I just finished, raving about while it storms of Grace of Kings. I'm going to read The Veil Throne soon, and then Speaking Bones comes soon after, which I am hype for. I have heard that Veiled Throne and Speaking Bones are one book, technically, so I'm looking forward to that, and I'm glad that I tapped into this fandom when I did, because I wouldn't have to wait so long between Veiled Throne and Speaking Bones, which is great, so I'm happy. Now we go into some more interesting ones, which is, what is your biggest disappointment of this year? And that is The Emperor's Blades by Brian McClellan. This book, I will say this time and time again, this is the most aggressively mediocre book I have ever read. I apologize if you like this, but like, there are so many concepts in this book that I should like. You have giant birds that are part of a elite special forces unit. You have monks, which understandably is not the most interesting at first, but when the things in the storyline with the monks are kind of awesome. You have a daughter of the king who just died, who is the finance minister and is trying to uncover what's happening with her dad's death. You have some really cool, interesting magic things that I can't say, but like, they were all executed in the most meh way ever. The tension was all about the king's death, Well, that tension isn't even remarkably tapped into until like 3/4 of the way through the book. Like, it's just wild and weird and just like, why did you choose to write it this way, sir? I'm sorry, Brian, but like, this is how I feel. So like, I'm not gonna go on. Maybe one day I'll do a video about the series if I actually ever finish the series. It's unlikely, but we'll see. Biggest surprise of this year. I've actually already mentioned these two, and that is The Scarab Path by Adrian Tchaikovsky, because I was surprised to just the like ratchet up in terms of quality. And then the other one, of course, would be Grace of Kings, because this is one of those ones that I kind of just picked up because someone was like, hey, let's read this. And I'd heard like 1 or 2 things about it. They're like, oh, people like this. And I'm like, let's try it. Fine, let's do it. Screw my TBR. I'm so glad I did. So, those two for certain. Favorite new to you author. This shouldn't be a surprise. It's Ken Liu. I actually have some of the books, one of the books he's translated as well. But I have Grace of Kings, all that jazz. I have Paper Menagerie for when I feel like I want to have a good cry, because I've heard that's a just emotional book. I'm ready to like this guy. I trust him a lot now. And I've only read 2 of his books, but I still like trust this man a lot. Next up, newest fictional crush. I'll repeat this like I did last year. No, I don't do that really. I might have joked about it at some point, but like it was jokes, and I don't remember like when I joke about things like that. I don't remember that. So can't give you an answer here. What is your newest favorite character? Continuing with the how much can I talk about Grace of Kings trend, Kuniguru from Grace of Kings and Wall of Storms. Brilliant character. I really loved a lot of his attributes, mostly because like there's a certain element of me seeing myself in him to a certain extent, which I don't know if that's a arrogant thing or just I actually see a lot of myself in him. But I like him as a character, and I think he has a really good arc and all that jazz. So I understand a lot of things, some of the things he's going through to a certain extent. And I've never been in his position, but you know, I don't know. I like him. I like what his arc says as well. Next up is a book that made you cry. The first one that comes to mind is Ship of Magic, because there's some places there. Wall of Storms for certain. To continue with the same 3 books. Are there any others? Let's see. Definitely some moments in Tchaikovsky with the Air War. There were some moments in the Air War, because like his writing is great as we continue the series. And I swear there's one more. Oh, yes, a book I haven't talked about yet. 9 Fox Gambit. So this one could technically also be in the biggest surprise category as well, because this one, I don't necessarily know if this was a surprise, because I thought I would like it after seeing Angela Lit Science Alliance's review. But also I couldn't remember exactly why I wanted to read it, but I read it anyways, and I was like, this is amazing, and it made me feel things. This is a really good book. I do have a review for it if you want to go check out that. And yeah, this is a sci-fi, so it's not necessarily what a lot of you guys see me reading, though I do enjoy a good sci-fi from time to time. Definitely love the tactics in here and the questions that this book puts forth. With the conspiracies, the questions about society in general, specifically around the society that is structured in this book. I like it when a book questions society. I don't know if you could tell. Well, I haven't mentioned this video, but I do. It's a trend. Books that made me happy this year. I will say any book in the Lady Trent series. I think I've read, I can't remember, I believe I've only read 1 this year, which is Tropic of Serpents, though I'm planning to read the rest of them this year. And then I will also say Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. That was a really happy book, a really interesting book. That's basically all I'll say there. That was a beautiful book. That's one of those books that like you can't talk about it that much, because the mystery of the book is so much a part of the book, like it should be, that if you talk about the mystery around people, like you spoil it, stuff like that. So it's the second to last one we're going to talk about, what is the most beautiful book that you've bought this year? And this book, I think I bought it in January, because there was a 50% off Barnes & Noble hardcover sale, and I was like, I need to go check that this book is on this list because I wasn't going to buy it otherwise because trying to cut down on expenses. And that is the illustrated Lord of the Rings newest edition, which looks beautiful, has some amazing illustrations in it, all of them, you know, by Tolkien himself, and it's just a great, you know, beautiful thing to have. So, yeah, this, definitely. I might have been end of December, but we're going to say January. Because I buy really beautiful books for few and far between. Because most of the time, I do beat up my books a little bit sometimes, and I don't want to buy really, really pretty editions that I'm going to read and damage. And the final question, which was probably going to be the longest one, what books do you need to finish by the end of the year? I'm going to structure this by series because there's a lot of series I'm reading, and there was I think I had an entire video about series I want to finish this year, so we're going to go by that and go over what series are on my TBR to finish this year. The first one is Shadows of the Apt. I started this year at the end of book 4. I am now finished through book 8. I have 2 books left, so I am doing really good with this series. I should definitely finish it by the end of the year because it's 2 books and I'm really invested in this series, so it's gonna happen. The next one is the Dagger and Coin. This is a new series. I don't remember if it was actually in the video, but I started it in January. I've only read the first 2 books in it. I just keep pushing it off because I wasn't actively reading it with a buddy read because I kind of like fell out of sync with some people, I guess. So I want to pick it back up again, but I just have been overwhelmed by buddy reads, and these buddy reads are in series, and it's just, I do this to myself. It's fine. Next up is a series that I haven't continued with yet this year, and that's the Books of Babble series by Josiah Bancroft. Read Sun and Ascends last year. Loved it. Been almost a year since I read it. Haven't continued yet. I do want to. Trust me, it's been on the TBR. It's just, I keep building up buddy reads and I keep pushing it back. It's gonna happen. Like, out of all of the series that I talked about, like, this is one of the ones I really want to at least get started on finishing this year so I can get to that. I've just heard so many great things about the endings and stuff like that. It's such a interesting book series. Then we have Machineries of Empire, which is the series that Nine Fox Gambit is the first one of. It's technically a trilogy and a bunch of short stories. I do have all 4 of those books and I plan on reading all 4 of them. I've already read 1. Hopefully I'll get the second one done this month and then continue on from there. You know, these books are super short, which is really a big value to them, like 300 pages. So it should be really easy just to get through these really quickly. Realm of the Elderlings. This is a 16-book series of total by Robin Hobb, but it's a bunch of component series. We have Farseer, we have Live Ship, we have Tawny Man, we have Rain Wilds, and we have, I can't remember the name of the last one, but there are 5 different series, 16 books. I am planning on finishing the first 3 series this year. So we have Live Ship, and then we have Tawny Man next, and then we start the next 2 next year. That I'm on track so far. We'll see if this kind of slumpy month so far like throws me off at all, but we'll see. And then of course Dandelion Dynasty. This is also a new one, really just spawned in 2 months ago, but I'm loving it. Definitely on track to finish this by the end of the year. If I don't get this finished, there's something wrong, essentially. And then we have a big buddy read with the Library of Alexandria, Shadow Campaigns, which is a Flintlock series. Just did a review for the first one because I really liked it. Definitely planning on continuing. I'm about to have all 5 books. This is just a really, really cool Flintlock fantasy that popped up, so I'm buddy reading it, of course. Yay! And of course, Infinite Jest. We'll see. I have doubts for myself, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm working on it. Really working on it. Trust me. I will say my SFBBO books. I am reading 6 books for SFBBO, the self-published fantasy blog off. I am reading them as part of Bookborn's cohort of people that are reading books to recommend to her, so she can pick the finalist, her finalist. So I am in the middle of reading the first one. I'm in the middle of a bit of a slump right now. I need to get rejuvenated and just keep reading more books. So yeah, I'm liking the one I'm reading so far, and yeah, I got 5 others that you will see over the coming months. Lady Trent. So I have read 2 books of the Lady Trent series, which is Naturalist Dear Dragons, Memoirs of Lady Trent. This is kind of a really good, like, just feel-good series, and I've been told that the best is yet to come. So there are technically 5 books plus a 6th sequel book about the granddaughter. In total, I've read 2, so 4 left. This is doable. I just have to get on it. I think the next book I have scheduled is August, maybe? We'll see. The next 2 are books that I just haven't touched in a while. It's been over a year since I read the first book in Powder Mage and Theft of Swords, actually. So Riria and Powder Mage, these 2 books both have 2 books left for me. Well, Riria is technically 4, but there's 2 bind-ups. I want to get to these, but these kind of are like on the bottom of the list for all these series that I want to finish. I'm planning on getting to them. They're on my TBR, but we'll see. And then the final one is one I haven't really mentioned yet, and that is Mistborn Era 2. I am part of one of the many buddy reads of Mistborn Era 2 happening over the next few months. I believe, let's see here, November, September, October, August. August is when I'm reading the first one. Bands of Mourning will be in September, October, and that means Alloy of Law will be in August and Shadows of Self will be in September, because that's how calendars and series work. Anyways, my brain. Reading with some friends of mine. Stay tuned. I'm hoping to do some more Mistborn content, Mistborn Era 2 content, before The Lost Metal comes out. So, yeah. And that's kind of pretty much it. It's a lot of series. I'm going to read them all, right? Yeah. No. We shall see. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments about these books, if you've read them, if you really want me to push one up on my TBR, let me know, because I might be swayed. We'll see. Again, thank you for watching, and make sure to get some rest, because that is super, super important. Goodbye.